Welcome, beautiful disaster pieces. Yeah, you. The one still trying to figure out how the hell it all flipped on you. The one replaying every scene like it was your fault. You think you were crazy for trusting them, huh? Nah. You were loyal in a world that profits off betrayal. You were real in a script that was always fake. And the punchline? They wrote your pain like it was entertainment. And don't act like you haven't felt it. That rage crawling up your spine like a slow venom drip. That cold clarity slapping you awake at 3 a.m. when the mask finally slips. And you see the real face behind the I love yous and I'm here for yous. Spoiler alert, they never meant a word. Not a single damn word. You ever sit there and realize the one you would have set yourself on fire for was warming their hands on your suffering? Let that sink. They turned you into a storyline, a side plot, some tragic fool bleeding loyalty while they edited the truth with scissors and shame. They used your honesty like a weapon against you, twisted your trust like a noose, then left you hanging and called it closure. You were loyal to a lie. You bled for a performance. You stayed for a nightmare wrapped in a daydream. And the worst part? They made you think you were the villain. You ever notice how manipulators flip the script? How they play the victim when you start catching on? How suddenly you're too emotional when you finally react? That's the trick. That's the game. Keep you doubting your gut while they rewrite the whole narrative in real time. Gaslight you into silence. Guilt trip you into submission. Praise you for being strong just to keep you carrying the weight of their mess. It's not strength. It's exploitation dressed up like virtue. They didn't love you. They loved your silence, your compliance, your self-abandonment. Because that's what kept their world spinning while yours burned. And you held it all together like a damn magician, smiling with bleeding gums, showing up with broken bones, carrying their shame like it had your name on it. But here's the truth no one told you. You were never too much. They were never enough. They couldn't handle your light, your loyalty, your depth. So they dimmed you, painted you as unstable, unhinged, too intense. But intensity only scares the ones who feed off surface-level connection. You threatened their illusion. You reminded them what real looked like. And real is terrifying when you're fake. You want to know why they never let you read the whole book? Because the last chapter exposes everything they swore you'd never figure out. Every lie, every mask, every twisted little version of the story they told others about you to justify what they did. See if you ever got to that final page, the one they tried so hard to rip out. You'd realize you were never the broken one. You were the threat, and threats get silenced. That's why they ghosted. That's why they smeared your name. That's why they fed your truth to people who only know your pain through their version of it. Because if people knew what really happened, they'd look at them different. Not you. But here's where it gets dark and powerful. You did read that final chapter, didn't you? Late at night, piecing together the patterns, the inconsistencies, the holes in their timeline. You saw it all. And now, you're holding the book in your hands. Blood on the pages, tears in the margins, truth leaking through the spine. What do? You burn it, not out of hate, out of liberation. Because that book was never written for your healing. It was written to trap you in loops, to keep you chasing closure in people who don't speak the language of accountability, to keep you longing for apologies from people who can't even spell remorse, to keep you addicted to breadcrumbs, starving for a feast in someone else's narrative. You don't rewrite the story, you burn it to ash. You don't keep rereading pain just to make it make sense. It made sense the first time it broke you. And maybe that's what they'll never understand, that you're done needing the explanation. You're not the victim anymore. You're the survivor who finally figured out the plot twist. You were the hero the whole time. But heroes get rewritten in someone else's villain arc when the truth doesn't serve their ego. You're dangerous now, not because you're violent, but because you're awake. Because you stopped apologizing for the fire in your soul. Because you stopped playing small to protect someone else's fragility. Because you finally looked in the mirror and said, "No more chapters where I die, just to keep the story going." And no, you're not cold. You're not heartless. You're just done bleeding for people who love the idea of you, but hate the responsibility of holding you right. You burned the book, and you should. Because healing doesn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looks like rage. Like silence, like walking away without a goodbye. Sometimes healing is realizing closure was just another control tactic. Sometimes healing is saying, "I know what you did. I know who you are. And I'm done pretending not to." You were never hard to love. You were hard to manipulate. And that's what made you dangerous in a world that thrives off broken mirrors and pretty lies. And now, you're not waiting for the ending anymore. You are the ending. And if anyone wants to know what happened, tell them this. You know what's wild? Half of them are out there living their best lives, pretending nothing ever happened, acting like your name doesn't echo every time silence gets too loud. Like they didn't drag your soul across glass just to make themselves feel taller. They rewrite history with a straight face. Post-healing. Quotes like they weren't the hurricane. Walk around acting like they're misunderstood when really they were just caught. Caught in the lies, caught in the manipulation, caught in the damn mirror, finally facing the wreckage they caused. But you sat in that wreckage. No shortcuts, no denial, just pain, unfiltered, unpretty, unfair. While they skipped straight to moving on, you were out here picking glass out of your chest alone. And that's why you're built different. Because they collapse under consequences, but you rise through reality. They dodge accountability. You stared it down with tears in your eyes and fire in your lungs. You were never the fragile one. You were the one forced to be strong because no one gave a damn about your breaking point. And let's be honest, you gave chance after chance, didn't you? You made excuses for their behavior, blamed your own boundaries for their disrespect. Told yourself, maybe they're just going through something, when really, they were just showing you exactly who they are. The silence wasn't confusion, it was calculation. The inconsistencies weren't accidents, they were rehearsed. They weren't overwhelmed, they just didn't care enough to handle you right. Let that sting, let it settle, let it reshape your spine, because this world will gaslight the hell out of you for being emotionally aware, spiritually honest, deeply loyal. But the truth? That's rare currency. And you've been handing it out like it was free to people who couldn't afford to match your depth if their life depended on it. You think they feel guilty? They don't. They feel exposed. That's why they flip the narrative. That's why they call you bitter, dramatic, too sensitive. Because the second you stopped protecting their image and started speaking your truth, you became a threat. And guess what? Good. You were never put on this planet to be palatable to people who treat your soul like a prop. You weren't born to be quiet, agreeable, low maintenance. That's not healing. That's self-erasure. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the version of you that tolerated them. And here's the real kicker. You're not broken, you're waking up. That pit in your stomach? That's your intuition finally screaming over the gaslighting. That anger? That's your nervous system rejecting the lies. That numbness? That's your soul asking for peace, not people. This isn't heartbreak. This is rebirth. This isn't rock bottom. This is foundation. This isn't the end. This is the part where the villain realizes the main character didn't die. You just evolved, quieter, colder, sharper, but real, and done playing therapist to people who need a mirror instead. You're not looking back for closure. You're not reopening wounds to explain your side. You're not performing for an audience that clapped when you cried. You're burning the book, not because it was painful, but because it was fake. They fed you fantasy, packaged in guilt. Gave you love that had terms and conditions. Sold you a dream that turned into a damn nightmare. And when you screamed, they told you to whisper. Nah, let it burn. Let it turn to ash so you can finally breathe in oxygen instead of smoke. Let the last page be fire. Because if they wanted to be remembered fondly, they should have behaved better. You ever notice how people who break you always beg for peace? Once you finally retaliate with truth, you stay silent. You're mature. You speak up. You're bitter. You leave. You're cold. You stay. You're crazy. No matter what you do, they'll twist it. And that's why you stop playing by rules designed to keep you small, compliant, and broken. You are not the version of you they crafted in their fragile little minds. You are not their scapegoat, their emotional punching bag, or their redemption arc. You are the fire they never saw coming, the consequence they never prepared for, the proof that not everyone stays broken. You ever wonder why the ones who did the most damage are the loudest ones playing victim? They got a whole audience clapping for their healing journey, while you're out here trying to remember how to breathe without breaking down in the middle of the damn grocery store. You lost sleep, lost appetite, lost parts of yourself you'll probably never get back. And they're out here talking about positive vibes only. Funny how the villains always get rebranded as survivors the second they get caught. You kept it quiet out of loyalty. They twisted the silence into a license. You protected their reputation while they fed lies to people who never had the range to question them. And they still had the nerve to call you toxic, projection 101. They can't face the mirror, so they paint your reflection as distorted. Can't hold a real convo, so they script you as the unstable one. That's not delusion, that's damage control. That's what cowards do when they realize they no longer control the narrative, and maybe that's what triggered them the most. You stopped reacting, you stopped feeding the drama, you stopped explaining yourself, you stopped shrinking just to keep the peace. And the silence that once meant you were being silenced, now it's strategy, now it's protection, now it's power. Because you figured it out. Not every battle needs a response. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every betrayal gets a seat at your table anymore. They created chaos and called it connection. Made you feel like love was something you had to earn by sacrificing yourself, piece by piece. Taught you to mistake adrenaline for affection. And when you stopped playing along, suddenly you were too distant. You weren't distant. You were done. You weren't cold. You were protecting the warmth they kept draining. You weren't mean. You just stopped letting people get comfortable disrespecting you. But here's what they'll never admit. They miss the version of you that didn't know better. The one that made excuses. The one that over-explained. The one that blamed yourself for their emotional immaturity. Because this new version, this version has boundaries. This version isn't begging to be chosen. This version doesn't chase clarity from people who thrive off confusion. And yeah, it hurts. It hurts when you realize your loyalty was weaponized, when your love was exploited, when your patience was twisted into a permission slip. But pain doesn't mean weakness. Pain means awakening. This isn't you being broken. This is you finally getting honest about the cracks. This is you learning how to rebuild without permission, how to walk away without guilt, how to sit in your solitude and call it sanctuary instead of punishment. They wanted you in pieces because whole people make broken ones nervous. They wanted your silence because your voice disrupted the illusion. They wanted access to your softness, but none of the accountability that comes with it. You ever notice how the same people who begged you to open up used your vulnerability like ammunition? That's why you stopped handing out access like it was a coupon. That's why you stopped oversharing to people who only listened to reload. That's why you stopped watering connections that only grew when you were wilting. This new energy, it's not bitterness, it's boundaries. It's not revenge, it's remembrance. You remember the nights they forgot you existed. You remember the lies they made you believe. You remember how it felt to be replaced, erased, overlooked. Like you were just a damn placeholder in their timeline. But you weren't a placeholder. You were the realest one in the room, and they knew it. That's why they tried so hard to break you. Because people don't destroy what they don't fear. And what they fear most is you stepping into that version of you that doesn't flinch anymore. That doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't accept half-hearted, half-assed, half-present anything. You're not the one who needs fixing. You're the one who finally stopped pretending they were worth saving. They don't talk about the rage that comes with clarity, do they? That moment when all the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the twisted timelines, it all clicks. Like 1,000 puzzle pieces falling into place, and suddenly you're staring at the truth so raw. It burns. You see it. You really see it. Not just what they did, but how long they did it while smiling in your face, calling it love, calling it care, calling it anything but what it really was. Control. And it hits you like a freight train. You weren't loved. You were handled, managed, manipulated, measured in how much you could bend before you broke. They didn't want a partner. They wanted a reflection, a mirror to bounce their ego off of, to clap for their half-efforts, to validate their bare minimum like it was divine. And the second you asked for something real, the second you needed reciprocity, presence, emotional depth, you became too much. You started calling out patterns, and suddenly you were hard to talk to. You stopped laughing at the disrespect, and suddenly you were negative. You stopped pretending it didn't hurt, and now you were dramatic. It's wild how fast the love turns cold when you stop tolerating disrespect wrapped in charm. You ever sit with that realization long enough that your hands start shaking? Not because you're weak, but because your body finally got the memo your heart had been ignoring. This was never safe. This was never love. This was survival with lipstick on. And while they were out there collecting applause for their fake growth, you were in the trenches, actually growing. Not performatively, not for social media, but in the quiet, with no audience, just you. Your shattered self-esteem, and that sick feeling in your stomach every time you remembered another red flag you ignored. You learned the difference between silence and peace, between being alone and being lonely in someone else's presence, between being desired and being used. They wanted your soul, but weren't willing to hold your scars. They wanted your energy, but never your emotions. They wanted the version of you that made them feel powerful, not the version that dared to have needs, dreams, standards. And you gave so many chances, not because you were naive, but because you hoped. You held on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, they'd rise to meet you, that the person you saw in glimpses could become the person who'd stay. But glimpses aren't consistency, breadcrumbs aren't meals, and potential isn't presence. You can't keep building futures with people who won't even own their past. It's not your job to raise grown adults emotionally. It's not your duty to fix trauma that keeps showing up in your face, dressed as excuses. It's not love if you're constantly bleeding while they nap in your arms. They want you soft when they're safe and silent when they're messy. But the second you speak with fire in your throat, they act brand new. Suddenly the history you both lived through is just your perspective. Suddenly the memories you cried through are you being stuck in the past. You ever realize how people who can't face your truth will try to discredit your entire story? That's why you had to start talking to yourself different, had to start hyping yourself like no one else would, had to start setting boundaries like locks, not suggestions, because they'll come back. Oh, they always come back. With I've changed, with I miss you, with no one gets me like you. But none of it ever holds weight. It's not about you. It's about access. It's about comfort, nostalgia, ego. They miss your stability, not your chaos. They miss the way you forgave too easily, not the strength you carry now. They miss the version of you who didn't know better, the one they could mold, fold, silence. But that version died in the fire they lit and left you to burn in. What's walking around now? That's a version that doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. This version's dangerous, not because you're out for revenge, but because you finally know your worth without needing anyone to validate it. And they hate that. They hate that the game ended and you didn't ask for the rule book back. They hate that you're healing without them watching, that your glow-up isn't for their redemption arc, that you stopped looking back, because deep down, they always knew. You were never broken, just buried. You start catching yourself thinking about all the times you made it easy for people who didn't deserve easy. You remember those late nights, you trying to explain what hurt, and them acting like you were overreacting, like you were auditioning for sympathy instead of just asking to be seen. It's funny how they always remembered your tone, but never your pain. You used to rehearse conversations in your head, right? All those imaginary arguments where you finally said everything you swallowed for the sake of peace. The version of you that never got to speak. That one still lives somewhere inside, still pacing the room, still waiting for a chance to be heard. You start to realize that's what healing actually looks like. Letting that version talk, even if nobody's listening this time. You replay the moments when they'd check out mid-sentence, eyes glazing over like your feelings were white noise. And back then, you told yourself it was okay. You told yourself they were just tired, stressed, distracted. You ignored the truth that they were never listening because your pain didn't benefit them. It didn't make them feel powerful or special or needed. It just reminded them that they were the reason you hurt. And there's something heavy about that realization. It's not the kind of sadness that makes you cry. It's the kind that makes you stare at a wall and go quiet. That's the grief of finally understanding. You were loyal to people who studied you, just enough to use your softness as leverage. They didn't love you. They learned you. learned your triggers, your dreams, your insecurities, and used all of it like currency. Ah, look at you. Beautiful chaos in motion. Welcome, heartbreak in human form. Welcome, walking controversy. Welcome to the show they can't stop talking about, even when you're not even in the damn room. You didn't ask for this spotlight. You didn't beg for attention. You just existed, loudly, unapologetically, and suddenly every insecure soul with Wi-Fi and repressed trauma decided you were their personal apocalypse. They're losing sleep over you. You're not even talking, and they're already twisting your silence into prophecy. You post a picture, and it spreads like wildfire through the phones of people who swore they don't even look your way. Your name comes up, and jaws tighten, eyes roll. Suddenly everyone's a detective, everyone's a victim, everyone's got a story about you. And for what? Because you had the audacity to breathe without asking for permission. Because you stopped shrinking yourself to fit their fragile realities. Because you left the damn group chat mentally a long time ago, and they still think they own real estate in your head. Meanwhile, you're out here building empires in silence. They don't hate you. Not really. They hate the mirror you hold up to their mediocrity. You are a walking what if they'll never have the balls to chase. You are proof that you can crawl out of hell, still burning, still bleeding, and still laugh louder than the world ever wanted to hear. They're obsessed because you remind them they're still stuck. They're scared of you. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're free. And nothing threatens the powerless more than someone who doesn't need approval to exist. You've got them talking like you're a damn myth. Like you're not flesh and blood. Like you're some kind of glitch in their system of control. And in a way, you are. Because every time you show up, every time you win, every time you smile after all the shit they threw at you, you destroy their illusions of safety. You make people uncomfortable, not because you're wrong, but because you're real. They gossip in circles because they can't confront themselves. They send subliminals, cryptic posts, whispered warnings, but they don't say your name because saying your name would mean acknowledging your power, and they'd rather choke on their envy than admit they're watching your every move. They stalk your life like it's Netflix. They screenshot your existence like it's evidence. They replay your glow-up like it's a crime in progress. They turn your wins into conspiracies, your losses into memes, your silence into offense. They don't want to know how you did it. They want to know why they couldn't. And deep down, you know this. That's why you keep walking like your spine is made of vengeance. That's why you laugh like the world owes you nothing, because it doesn't. And yet, here you are, standing tall with no blueprint, no privilege, just nerve and nightmares, and a track record of surviving shit that would have folded them 10 times over. You don't owe them a damn explanation. Let them guess. Let them spiral. Let them fill in the blanks with their projections while you keep rewriting your future in permanent ink. Let them lose sleep. Because while they're lying awake trying to dissect your every breath, you're out here building a reality they couldn't dream of without sedatives. You walk in rooms like war just entered. You speak and it echoes like prophecy. You exist and the air shifts. And that kind of presence, that kind of gravity, it's not taught. It's earned through scars, through silence, through seasons of being the villain in everyone's story just because you chose yourself. You didn't break them. You just reminded them that they were already broken. You're the kind of soul people try to replicate and fail. Because you're not a trend. You're a trauma response wrapped in art. You're the result of too many betrayals, too many nights crying alone, too many times being underestimated. And you made all of that look good. No wonder they can't sleep. You are the unfinished sentence in their mind, the plot twist they didn't see coming, the karma they prayed would never show up wearing lipstick and confidence. You are the embodiment of what they couldn't kill. And you keep rising, keep glowing, keep living like every wound was just another color in your paint set. Let them whisper, let them obsess, let them try to decode a language you were born fluent in. Because you're not even in competition. You are the standard. And they're going to keep asking the same panicked question in every secret conversation, in every group chat they think you'll never see. Who the fuck is this? And why the hell won't you break? They tried to box you in, categorize you, give you a name that made them feel safe. Too much, too loud, too crazy, too full of yourself. Because calling you powerful would expose the parts of them that feel weak in your presence. Every time you walk by, they feel that knot in their stomach. Not fear, not hate, recognition. They see in you everything they buried, every dream they gave up on, every version of themselves they ghosted. You remind them of who they were before the world beat the fight out of them. And that's why they can't shut up about you. Because you're not supposed to still be standing. You weren't supposed to walk away from that betrayal with your head held high. You weren't supposed to glow up after they broke you down. You weren't supposed to get your power back. And you damn sure weren't supposed to own it. But you did. Quietly, violently, elegantly, without their permission. You're the reason they check who watched their story. You're the reason they refresh your page at 3 a.m. like it's gospel. You're the reason they pretend to not care while keeping a mental log of everything you wear, everything you post, everything you achieve. You've become their religion and their curse. You keep winning in ways they can't predict. You keep smiling through storms they thought would finish you. You keep doing the one thing they fear most, existing without them. And it eats them alive because in their world, you were never meant to escape the role they cast you in. But you didn't just escape. You rewrote the whole damn script. Now they're studying you like a case file, trying to reverse engineer your mindset. But they'll never get it, because they didn't feel your breakdowns in real time. They didn't watch the walls close in. They didn't scream into pillows until their throat burned. They didn't hold themselves together when it would have been easier to just disappear. They didn't carry what you carried, and that's why they can't understand how you're still breathing, still creating, still walking into rooms like you belong there, even when every voice in your past said otherwise. They think your confidence is cockiness. It's not. It's armor, and you earned every piece of it. You're not cold. You're forged. Every scar on your soul is a story they'll never be brave enough to read. You've seen the worst of people, and you didn't become like them. You became wiser. You didn't lose your heart. You just stopped handing it to cowards. And now your energy is so expensive, it bankrupts anyone who tries to get close with cheap intentions. You've become the villain in stories they tell to protect their egos. But deep down, even they know you were never the threat. You were the awakening. The reminder that silence doesn't mean submission. That stillness doesn't mean defeat. That not reacting doesn't mean you didn't notice. It means you outgrew the need to clap back. You evolved. They stayed stagnant. You chose growth over gossip, healing over chaos. And that quiet power, that unnerves people. It's easy to fight someone loud and sloppy. It's terrifying to face someone who doesn't need to explain themselves. Someone who just moves different. You move like your pain taught you discipline, like your trauma built you a throne. And they can't handle that. They want to know why you're so at peace. They want to know who you're becoming. They want to know how you're doing it. And they'll never admit it. But they're watching for instructions, hoping to find a blueprint in the life they tried to sabotage. You turned every insult into intention, every L into fuel, every rejection into redirection. And the crazy part is, you're just getting started. You're just getting warmed up, and it shows in everything. The way you walk into a space like gravity follows you. The way your silence hits louder than their loudest outbursts. The way your presence carries weight, even when you're not saying a damn word. You're not trending, you're timeless. And that's a threat to people who need attention, like oxygen. They're used to loud, messy, predictable. You showed up surgical, disciplined, lethal in your peace. You stopped entertaining clowns, and suddenly the whole circus felt offended. You moved in alignment and made their chaos look childish. You chose purpose over pettiness, and that silence cut deeper than any drag they could have posted, because you don't react, you respond, and only when it's worth your time. That's what keeps them up, not your success, not your confidence, not even your glow. It's your composure. They're used to people falling apart when they apply pressure. You leveled up. They poked and prodded, expected you to lash out, to beg, to explain, to fold. But you just stood there, unbothered, unreadable, unavailable. And that kind of peace, that kind of I don't owe you anything energy, it burns people who only feel powerful when they're feeding on drama. You don't feed anymore. You fasted on the validation, detoxed from the codependency, went completely cold turkey on people who only showed up to drain you. And in doing that, you became untouchable. You're no longer accessible to the version of you they thought they could manipulate, the one that over-explained, the one that tried to prove their worth, the one that apologized for having boundaries. That version is gone, buried in the ruins of every broken expectation they tried to trap you in. What's left is pure, high voltage, no hand-holding, earned confidence. The kind that doesn't flinch when misunderstood. Because let's be real, you've been misunderstood your whole life. Too deep for shallow rooms, too intense for surface-level friendships, too bold for the weak-hearted. You were never meant to blend in with people who fear their own potential. That's why they attack yours. You're a constant reminder that settling is a choice, and they made it. You didn't. And when you didn't, they called you arrogant, extra, difficult, aggressive, fake, cold. Too much. All labels created by people who were never strong enough to carry what you carry on a regular Tuesday. You're too real for their curated narratives, too raw for their watered-down identities, too free for their mental prisons. You show up like a glitch in the simulation. Proof that authenticity can't be algorithm-ed. And when you walk into a room, their whole energy shifts, not because you said something, but because you remind them they've settled. You're not a person to them. You're a damn reckoning. You're the proof that healing doesn't look like silence, it looks like audacity. The audacity to shine, to rise, to not explain yourself while they pick you apart, like analysts with nothing better to do. The audacity to live like you're done negotiating your worth with people who wouldn't know value if it broke their heart in slow motion. And they hate that you don't even flinch when they throw shade anymore. You used to react, used to question yourself, spiral into overthinking. and that gave them a hit, a little rush of control. But the version of you that exists today doesn't even register the noise. You don't defend your name in rooms you don't respect. You don't lower your frequency just to make cowards feel taller. You move like someone who's been through too much to still be playing survival games with people who've never been in a real war. You don't chase closure. You leave doors burning behind you and keep walking. You don't ask for clarity. You read the energy and bounce like your piece is on a timer. And it is, because you've got things to build, not circles to run in. They can't reach you anymore. And that's what's eating them alive. You outgrew the loop. You used to be part of that same game, that same rotating drama cycle where everybody plays victim, nobody grows, and everybody swears they're the realest one in the room while lying through their curated captions. But you snapped out. You chose discomfort over fake love, growth over gossip, self-respect over access. You didn't just heal. You upgraded, and your upgrades didn't come with applause. They came with silence, isolation, loneliness. You leveled up in dark rooms with your chest cracked open, rebuilding your sense of self with no cheerleaders in sight. And that's why your presence hits different. That's why your energy doesn't beg to be liked. It just is. They're watching from behind fake pages, fake smiles, fake lives, trying to figure out how someone who had less is doing more. How someone they wrote off is now being written into conversations they'll never be invited to. How someone they tried to embarrass is becoming unreachable. It's not that they don't like you. It's that your existence exposes them. Every step you take toward your higher self is a mirror they can't run from. And when they look into it, all they see is stagnation. That's not your fault. But your presence reminds them of it anyway. You became everything they mocked, everything they doubted, everything they told themselves wasn't possible. You became it and kept going. You didn't announce it. You didn't try to prove it. You just started living it, like the apology was already expired. And they're stuck in analysis mode, screenshotting your growth, replaying your wins like surveillance footage, reading your captions like sermons, looking for signs, proof, evidence that you're about to fall, and still not finding any. Because you don't crash like them, you transform. You take the hits, the betrayal, the whispers, and you alchemize them into momentum. You fall and land sharper. You hurt and get quieter. You get doubted and move smarter. And somehow every time you disappear for a while, you come back with more power, more clarity, more silence that speaks louder than their entire existence. They thought they were the storm, until you showed them what happens when one survives it, and they swear you changed, like it's some accusation, like the whole point wasn't to change, like the goal wasn't to evolve past the version of you who tolerated their weak-ass energy and watered-down loyalty. They call it switching up, but you call it growing up. You call it waking up to your own damn worth and realizing that peace tastes better than approval ever did. You outgrew their chaos, and now you make distance look like a luxury. They're trying to find the version of you they used to manipulate. But that version doesn't even have a forwarding address. You buried it in all the nights you cried, alone, in all the fake friendships you outgrew, in all the times you held back your fire just to be liked by people who couldn't even handle your pilot light. You're not angry, you're finished. You stopped explaining your worth to people who needed a receipt for everything you brought to the table. You stopped shrinking your voice to make room for egos that crack under pressure. You stopped overthinking your existence and started treating your energy like currency. Because it is. And they can't afford you anymore, not even close. They don't like your confidence because it wasn't gifted. It was built. Brick by brick, trauma by trauma, L after L. You didn't wake up like this. You clawed your way into this version of yourself with your bare hands. They don't know the nights you sat with your own madness, the mornings you faked a smile just to keep moving, the moments you questioned if you were even gonna make it, and still got up and chose to keep becoming. That kind of self-made resilience, it rattles people who are hoping you'd stay broken long enough for them to win the race. You're not even running the same race. You're building the stadium. You went from being underestimated to being studied. Every move you make is under review like it's a damn thesis. Your glow makes people uncomfortable because it wasn't handed to you. It came from surviving what they don't talk about. It came from keeping your head up when all you wanted to do was disappear. It came from healing alone, without an audience, without applause, without a support system. Just you versus everything trying to eat you alive. They thought the silence meant weakness. You were just reloading. And now that you've come back sharper, calmer, cleaner in your intent, you're too much for people who only know how to connect through drama and wounds. You became whole in a world that profits off brokenness. You became grounded in a space where people treat identity like a costume. You became dangerous because you're no longer emotionally blackmailable. You don't need revenge. You became it. Every step you take in peace is an earthquake for the people who hoped you'd stay in pieces. Every success you stack in silence hits louder than any clapback you could have thrown. Every time you ignore the bait, the shade, the sub, the sneak diss, you remind them that they're still stuck in a game you left a long time ago. You don't flex, you exist. And that's the whole problem. You're not trying to prove anything. You are the proof of what happens when someone stops waiting to be chosen, of what happens when someone turns pain into power and doesn't send out a press release, of what happens when someone walks away and the whole ecosystem built on their pain collapses in their absence. And the craziest part? You never even clapped back. You never exposed the receipts, never aired the dirty screenshots, never went live with the full story. You had every reason to burn bridges, and you chose to light yourself instead. Not to destroy, but to illuminate. You let the truth sit in silence and watched it rot their narratives from the inside out. You became the ghost they can't stop chasing. The presence they feel in every room even when you're not there. They check your page before bed, hoping for a sign that you're slipping, and wake up disappointed every damn time. You're still standing, still unbothered, still moving like their betrayal didn't even slow you down, because it didn't. They handed you chaos, and you made strategy. They handed you silence, and you learned how to speak without words. They handed you isolation, and you built discipline. And now, every version of them that thought you'd crumble has to sit and watch you walk around glowing like you swallowed every breakdown and turned it into fuel. You're not bitter, you're bulletproof. They tried to assassinate your character with whispers, and you responded with results. They tried to turn your name into a warning, and all they did was give it more weight. You're not trying to be liked anymore. You're too busy being undeniable. And that kind of power shakes people. You walked through the fire and didn't lose your softness, just your tolerance. You kept your heart, but raised the entry fee. You're done explaining yourself to people who fumble your presence, then act confused when you vanish like a storm that gave too many warnings. You were never the villain. You were the mirror the one that showed them everything they didn't want to fix. And it's funny, because they act like they don't care, like they're over it, like they're thriving. But every little thing you do, they see it, feel it, obsess over it. You post a win, and it hits them in the gut like a memory of what they could have had access to if they hadn't fumbled the blueprint, if they hadn't treated you like you were replaceable when you were the whole foundation. Ah, my favorite kind of audience. The misfits, the scapegoats, the outcasts, the ones they whispered about behind closed doors and smiled at during Sunday lunch, the ones they tried to break quietly, politely, while pretending to love you. Let me talk to you. The black sheep, the one who was never allowed to speak without your voice being twisted into something it wasn't. You weren't born with horns, but damn, didn't they treat you like you had them? Your crime. You saw through the mask. You called out the dysfunction. And for that, they sent the flying monkeys after you. Oh, you know who I'm talking about. The enablers, the spies, the sweet-smiling assassins, the cousins, the siblings, the family friends, the fake allies. Those who didn't hurt you directly. No, that would have been too obvious. They stood by. They let it happen. They watched you get emotionally gutted and said, well, maybe if you weren't so sensitive. Maybe if you weren't so real. But look at you now, still breathing, still walking, still carrying the weight of truth on your back like a flaming sword. You were never weak. You were targeted because you were the only one dangerous enough to question the family cult. You threatened their illusion. And the thing about illusion is, it can't coexist with reality. You were the glitch in their system, the system built on silence, shame, control. You broke the unspoken rule. Don't talk about what goes on behind these walls. And when you did, they panicked. They turned to the flying monkeys. You know the type. They flood your phone with fake concern. They gaslight you with spiritual bypassing. Forgive and forget. Family is everything. No one's perfect. But they never say that to your abuser, do they? Only you. Only the black sheep gets therapy quotes weaponized against them. Only you get called dramatic for reacting to the trauma they deny even happened. Only you get cast as angry, bitter, negative, because they don't want to see what they made you swallow for years. But here's what they didn't count on. You didn't break. You transformed. You turned that rage into clarity, that grief into fire, that rejection into resilience. And now, you're not begging for a seat at their cursed table anymore. You're building your own empire. And justice is not about getting an apology from people who are too empty to feel remorse. Justice is you no longer explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Justice is cutting off every last monkey string without guilt. Justice is realizing you were never crazy. They were just loud. You were labeled rebellious because you wouldn't conform. They called you disrespectful because you refused to bow to dysfunction. They said you were cold when you finally stopped playing their game. And let's talk about that game, shall we? The let's provoke you and call you unstable when you react game. The let's ignore your boundaries and act hurt when you enforce them game. The let's twist the story just enough so we look like the victims game. You didn't just lose your family, you escaped a cult. And now that you're free, you're not playing small anymore. You're not shrinking to fit in their cracked frame. You're not dimming your light to comfort the shadows. You see it now, don't you? Every time you stood up for yourself, they called it drama. Because drama disrupts control. Every time you named the abuse, they said it was the past, because the past exposes the present. Every time you walked away, they cried loyalty. But loyalty without mutual respect is slavery. Let them scream, let them twist, let them gather in circles and dissect your name like it's their Sunday ritual. Let them. Because while they're busy recycling lies, you're out here rewriting the narrative. You're proof that healing doesn't mean silence. You're the generational curse breaker, the exile who became sovereign, the black sheep who walked through fire and came out wearing the flames. And as for those flying monkeys, no mercy. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them grace. You don't owe them a single reply. Because anyone who was comfortable watching you suffer was never neutral. They were complicit. Block them, erase them, speak your truth. Tell your story, even if your voice shakes. Because the shaking voice is the one that survived the scream. You are not the villain in their delusional fairy tale. You are the plot twist they never saw coming. You, the black sheep. The scapegoat turned lion. The exile turned liberator. The family secret turned public reckoning. They thought they buried you. But they didn't know you were a Fing landmine. Keep walking. Let the silence echo louder than any lie they ever told. Let your healing scream into every room they once tried to control. Let your glow burn the mask off every manipulator who thought they broke you. Because you're not broken, you're awake, and now you're the damn storm. They still watch, don't they? Still lurking, still checking your socials with burner accounts, still asking mutuals. Have you heard from them? Still tossing breadcrumbs of fake peace, just enough to test if your spine's still steel. And every time you don't respond, every time you don't fold, it kills them, because silence from the black sheep hits louder than applause from the golden child. Because now they know they don't own you. Not your mind, not your body, not your truth. You used to flinch at the thought of disappointing them. Used to lose sleep over what they might think. Used to rehearse your tone, your text messages, your damn breathing, just to avoid another guilt trip. Now you walk past that whole circus like it never existed, because you finally figured out being the villain in a toxic story means you finally stopped being the puppet. There's nothing more dangerous than someone who stops needing approval to exist. That's you now. They built their whole control system on the belief that you needed them, their validation, their fake love, their backhanded support. They mistook your empathy for weakness, your loyalty for submission, your kindness for permission. But you weren't weak. You were wired for love in a house built on fear. You were built for truth in a family addicted to lies. And when that didn't align, you bled quietly. You choked on your own voice until one day you stopped choking and started roaring. Not everyone gets out. You know that. You've seen the ones who stayed. They laugh too loud, smile too wide, drink too much, apologize too quickly. They're still playing a role in a script they didn't write. And when they see you walking off stage, no costume, no mask, no shame, they hate you for it. Not because you're wrong, because you're free. And freedom's a mirror they can't look into without seeing the chains around their own necks. Chains they decorated with family heirlooms and embroidered with religion, culture, duty. Chains they convinced themselves were bracelets. But you saw it, you called it, you shattered it. Piece by piece, boundary by boundary, you pulled every rusted link off your soul and stood there. Bloody, breathless, but unowned. You've walked through the withdrawal, the isolation, the gaslighting from every direction, You've sat in rooms where everyone wore the same mask and still held your ground. You've cried in bathrooms after holding firm to a boundary, questioned your own memory because they swore it never happened, doubted your own sanity just because nobody else remembered the screaming. But you held on, and that kind of survival, that doesn't make you tough. It makes you legendary. This is what they'll never understand. It wasn't just about cutting contact. It wasn't just family drama. It was war, spiritual, emotional, psychological war. And you won, not with fists, not with revenge. You won by choosing peace over performance, by choosing healing over heritage, by choosing to live instead of just exist in a role they scripted for you before you even had language. You stopped dancing for scraps, stopped hoping the narcissist would wake up, stopped explaining your pain to people committed to defending the one who caused it. And that silence, that boundary, that no that used to shake in your throat, it became your anthem, your sword, your shield. You stopped showing up to be sacrificed. And when they realized they couldn't guilt you anymore, couldn't shame you into submission, couldn't gaslight you back into their narrative, they didn't get reflective, they got ugly. Of course they did, because they lost their scapegoat. They lost their distraction. They lost the one person who used to absorb the dysfunction so everyone else could keep pretending it wasn't there. Now the spotlight's on them, and they're scrambling because nothing exposes a lie faster than someone who refuses to keep living inside it. That's what you are now, a walking exposure, a threat wrapped in calm, a mirror they can't smash, a truth they can't bury. You didn't leave the family, you left the cycle. You didn't cut people off, you chose your sanity. You didn't change, you finally became yourself. You remember the day it all snapped, don't you? The exact second your body said no more. Might have been during some casual family gathering. Someone threw a jab masked as a joke. They all laughed, you didn't. And in that stillness, that silence, right after, you felt it. This rupture. This invisible cord snapping loose from every fake hug, every guilt-laced memory, every lie you were forced to swallow just to keep the peace. You didn't explode, you awoke. And from that moment forward, nothing fit anymore. Not the fake conversations, not the fake apologies, not the mental gymnastics to justify abuse because they had it worse. Your tolerance for dysfunction evaporated like smoke, and you finally saw the room for what it was. A stage. A stage where you were cast as the unstable one so they didn't have to look at the mess they created. You know what they miss most? Your silence, your compliance, your willingness to eat your pain so they could sleep at night. Because you made it easy. Too easy. They handed you their shame. You wore it like a damn uniform. They dumped their secrets on you. You carried them like heirlooms. They fed you with half-truths and twisted timelines, and you digested it like a loyal dog. Not anymore. You spit it all out. Every lie, every manipulated memory, every rebranded trauma. You stopped calling it complicated and started calling it what it really was, abuse. You stopped rationalizing it as cultural or just how they were raised and admitted it was toxic, deliberate, designed to keep you small, scared, compliant. And that admission, it cost you everything they were never really giving you in the first place. The fake love, the illusion of safety, the crumbs of belonging that only came when you played your role just right. They say family is forever. But trauma doesn't get a pass just because it came from your bloodline. They want you to believe walking away is weakness. But staying, when it's killing you slowly, that's the real tragedy. You didn't lose family. You lost people who expected you to betray yourself for their comfort. The flying monkeys don't get that. They still parrot the same lines. But they're your mother. You only get one father. You'll regret this one day. As if regret is heavier than the decades you already spent erasing yourself. As if one title justifies a lifetime of emotional warfare. As if you haven't already buried the version of you that died trying to earn their love. You don't owe anyone access to you just because they share your DNA. Love without accountability is manipulation. Respect without reciprocity is slavery. And forgiveness without change is self-betrayal. You're not heartless for setting boundaries. You're not cruel for choosing peace. You're not bitter for telling the truth. You're just done. Done pretending. Done sacrificing your well-being to keep a broken structure from collapsing. Done being the only one at the table bleeding and apologizing for it. They said you were too emotional, too reactive, too distant, too cold. But never once did they stop to ask why. Never once did they wonder what it cost you to carry all that silence for their comfort. Never once did they acknowledge that your distance was actually you trying to breathe through the wreckage of what they called love. You learned the hard way. Some people will call you selfish the moment you stop dying for them. Some people only like you when you're bleeding quietly. Some people only remember you when they need someone to dump their unresolved mess on. And the second you set fire to the scapegoat altar they built for you, they lose their minds. But the truth is, you were never meant to be their emotional landfill. You were never meant to be the buffer between them and their own consequences. You were never meant to suffer for their healing. You're not the problem, you're the pattern interrupt. You're the reason their lies don't sit as smooth anymore. You're the reason their stories don't go unchallenged. You're the reason they're uncomfortable at family dinners. Because you stopped playing dead and started telling the truth with your whole chest. Every time they say you've changed, what they really mean is you stopped being easy to manipulate. You stopped twisting yourself into shapes just to fit inside a narrative that was never written for you. You stopped making excuses for the people who handed you pain with a straight face and called it tradition. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you who tolerated their dysfunction with a smile. You were taught to betray yourself before you ever even learned how to protect yourself. Taught to keep the peace, even if it meant setting yourself on fire just to warm the room. Taught to shut up, smile, stay small. And every time you tried to speak up, they made you doubt your own voice. Every time you tried to leave, they reminded you who you were supposed to be. Not out of love, but out of control. And there you were, the black sheep, covered in scars you were told to ignore, carrying memories everyone else pretended didn't happen, carrying secrets too loud to say, but too real to forget. You were drowning in guilt you didn't earn, and begging for closure from people who only gave silence. But something in you cracked loud enough to wake the dead parts. You looked around at all the forced smiles, the fake concern, the scripted kindness, and realized it was never love. It was leverage. Every favor came with strings. Every gift came with guilt. Every I love you had conditions attached, buried under years of gaslighting, triangulation, and loyalty tests. They were never loving you. They were managing you. You weren't born to be a mirror for someone else's denial. You weren't born to be a character in their cover story. You weren't born to die a slow, polite death in the name of family. And even when you started walking away, even when you blocked the numbers, even when you cut the ties with your own shaking hands, you still grieved. You grieved what never was. You grieved the childhood you didn't get. You grieved the family that existed only in your imagination. You grieved while being villainized. You healed while being lied about. You rebuilt while they dragged your name through every room you weren't in. And you stayed quiet, not because you were weak, but because you knew they couldn't handle the whole truth spoken out loud. It's never been about revenge. It's never been about getting even. It's about reclaiming the pieces of yourself you had to bury just to survive. It's about walking back into your own skin like it's a throne, not a prison. You don't need their apology to validate your experience. You lived it. You don't need their permission to speak. You found your voice, and once you find it, you don't give it back. You don't need their version of events to be true. Truth doesn't need consensus. Truth doesn't require agreement. It just needs oxygen, and you're breathing again. You're not heartless because you went no contact. You're not cruel because you stopped picking up the phone. You're not dramatic because you refuse to sit at tables where betrayal is dressed up like love. You are not obligated to keep entertaining a system that fed you silence and expected gratitude. You're not the problem for walking away from people who only showed up to rewrite your pain into a punchline. Every step away was a step toward self-respect. Every boundary you set was a funeral for who they trained you to be. Every time you said no was a resurrection. You started seeing it in their eyes. That flicker of panic when you didn't flinch the way you used to. Didn't explain yourself. Didn't apologize for existing. Didn't chase after their approval like it was oxygen. You stood there unmoved, and for the first time, they realized you were no longer accessible. You became a locked door with no key. A version of yourself they couldn't reach, couldn't guilt, couldn't gaslight back into submission. And that terrified them, because control dressed as concern only works on the version of you that hasn't healed yet. They sent messages laced with nostalgia, old photos, fake memories, sweet lies dressed in warm lighting. Like history could erase the trauma. Like a smile could undo years of covert sabotage. But you've seen too much. You remember the moments behind those smiles. You remember the screaming through the walls, the silent treatments, the cold stares after you dared to say how you really felt. You remember the tears you swallowed because nobody believed the quiet ones were hurting you the most. It wasn't always fists. Sometimes it was the dinner table silence. Sometimes it was the public humiliation masked as just teasing. Sometimes it was the way your truth got laughed at in rooms full of fake love and real denial. Sometimes it was watching them protect your abuser with the kind of loyalty they never gave you. And for years you thought it was your fault. Thought if you were just more obedient, more agreeable, less sensitive, you'd finally earn the right to breathe without being punished for it. But you weren't broken. You were surrounded by people who normalized pain and shamed anyone who pointed it out. You were the only one asking real questions, the only one digging under the surface of the family script, the only one calling bullshit when everyone else smiled and nodded and passed the potatoes. And every time you broke the pattern, they tightened the leash. Called you difficult, called you disrespectful, called you ungrateful for not worshiping the same ghosts they did. But you didn't come here to play dead. You didn't come here to repeat the trauma like some cursed family tradition. You didn't come here to be the emotional landfill for other people's unprocessed wounds. You came here to shatter it, to disrupt it, to break every damn chain they pretended was heritage. You didn't run from the fire. You walked through it, barefoot, broken and wide awake, and came out dragging the truth behind you like a wrecking ball. And now they whisper. They say you're too much, that you changed, that you've forgotten where you came from. But they don't realize. You remembered who you were before they convinced you to forget. You don't move with shame anymore. You don't explain your worth like it's up for debate. You don't chase people who watched you bleed and asked why you were so dramatic. You don't negotiate with ghosts. Don't grieve what never loved you right. Don't perform normal for people who feed on pretense. You're not healing quietly. You're healing loud. Loud like boundaries. Loud like blocking numbers you used to cry over. Loud like showing up in your full self and not flinching when they flinch at your glow. You didn't choose this pain, but you chose to face it. And in that choice, you became unstoppable. Not because you're invincible, but because you've already survived the things that were designed to kill your spirit and keep your mouth shut. Ah, my beautiful disaster audience, the misunderstood misfits, the ones they whisper about behind curtains and smirk at in public. This one's for you. They laughed when you spoke the truth, not because it was funny, but because it was threatening. You were the one voice that cracked the illusion, the one echo that made the walls tremble. And for that, they labeled you crazy. They couldn't handle how right you were, so they painted you as wrong. Simple math for simple minds. You saw what they couldn't. You felt what they denied. You smelled the rot behind their fake smiles and phony church hugs. You noticed the cracks in their glass morals, the stains on their reputations they tried so hard to Febreze away. But you didn't play dumb. And in a world that feeds on silence and obedience, your honesty was a loaded weapon. So they tried to bury you with mockery, with labels, with whispered rumors and open chuckles. You've lost your mind, they said. Funny. Turns out they just never had the guts to find theirs. You sat alone, night after night, wondering if maybe they were right, maybe you were insane. Because how could it hurt this much if you were sane? But hear me loud. Pain is not madness. Pain is what happens when a soul refuses to fit into a plastic mold. When a spirit says, "No, I won't fake it just to make you comfortable." You were never crazy. You were just early. You saw the fire before the smoke even showed. You warned them, and they spat in your face. You told them the dam was cracking, and they laughed and held water balloons. You screamed, "The system is broken." And they muttered, "You always want attention." But now, the dam's collapsed, the fire's raging, the system has crumbled, and suddenly those same mouths are quiet. Their eyes dart away when you walk in the room, because shame has a way of clinging to the tongue. They're not laughing anymore, are they? You hear that silence. That's the sound of regret choking them in slow motion. They're ashamed. Ashamed that they didn't listen. Ashamed that they needed you and mocked you anyway. Ashamed that the crazy one didn't need credentials to see the truth. Ashamed that the same person they kicked when you were down is the one standing now. Tall, cold, undefeated. But don't get it twisted. They're not ashamed because they hurt you. They're ashamed because they couldn't break you. They threw dirt on your name hoping you'd stay buried. But the truth fertilized you. You didn't just grow. You became the whole forest. They tried to erase your story, and you came back as the damn headline. They see you now. They pretend they always believed in you. Suddenly they're stuttering your philosophies. Suddenly they're quoting the same truths they ridiculed. It's disgusting and poetic and earned. You didn't just survive the storm. You became the thunder they hear in their dreams. You became the reminder that the truth always outlives the laughter. You scare them now. Not because you're dangerous, but because you didn't need them to rise. Because you healed without their apologies. You rebuilt yourself without their help. You became strong in isolation, and nothing's more terrifying than a soul that found peace after being crucified. They stare, wide-eyed, like they've seen a ghost. But you didn't die. You evolved, and that's their worst nightmare. That the person they once called broken came back unshakable. You walk different now. You speak with the weight of someone who's had to chew their own pain just to survive. You carry the eyes of someone who stared into hell and smiled back. And even now, when they act like you're one of them, you know better. You remember the nights you cried into a pillow, like it was your only friend. You remember the birthdays where your only gift was silence. You remember walking through town, feeling eyes on you like you were a stain no one wanted to acknowledge. You remember, but you don't bow. Because that memory, that pain, that's your armor now. And don't you dare feel sorry for being right. Don't you dare shrink to make them feel better. They had their chance to understand you. They chose convenience over character. They chose laughter over listening. They chose mockery over meaning. Let them sit with that. You rise. You speak. You own every crazy label they slapped on you like a scar turned into art. You were right. And deep down, they always knew it. But it was easier to call you insane than to admit they were cowards. So now let them sit in the awkward silence of their own shame. Let them drown in the irony. Because you were never the broken one. You were just the mirror they couldn't face. And now they've seen what's in the reflection, and they're terrified. Because they finally saw what you've been carrying. Not just the pain, not just the rejection, but the clarity. You see too much. You feel too deep. You think in dimensions they can't even pronounce. And that scares the hell out of people who built their whole identity on pretending. You walk into rooms now and the temperature changes. Not because you're loud, but because your presence forces people to confront what they buried. You don't even have to speak. Your silence is confrontational. Your stillness is unsettling. Your very existence screams, "You were wrong about me." They sit there now, scrolling their lives away, choking on distractions, chasing likes, parroting opinions. And deep down, they know they'll never have what you do. Not success, not fame, not followers, no. What you have is rarer. You have truth, and not the cute, digestible TikTok truth they repost to feel edgy. You've got the kind that cracks ribs and forces people to feel again. You got back up without needing a damn audience. No claps, no hugs, no savior arc, just blood in your mouth and fire in your gut. And they watched. They watched you suffer. They saw the weight on your back and still added bricks. They called it tough love. Nah. It was cowardice with a moral filter slapped on top. You begged for understanding. They gave you sarcasm. You tried to explain. They mocked your tone. You opened your heart. They mined it for gossip. They didn't want to help. They wanted you silent. But you weren't built for quiet. You weren't made for blending in. You were wired to disrupt. And they hate that because you can't be bought. You can't be tamed. You can't be distracted with shallow nonsense or emotional breadcrumbs. They offer fake apologies now, dipped in self-preservation, not remorse. Hey, I didn't mean it like that. Yes, they did. They meant every word. They enjoyed every flinch, every breakdown, every time you second-guessed yourself. Because it made them feel powerful, made them feel safe. But what happens when the one they tried to destroy refuses to die? You happened. You bloomed in the dark. You found beauty in your breakdowns. You made your trauma art, your grief muscle, your isolation armor. Now they stare from the sidelines like fans at a game they never trained for. They take notes on your resilience like it's some cute aesthetic. They want your glow, but not your scars. They want your strength without your story. They want your truth without the nights you screamed into a god who didn't answer. But you remember. The days you almost caved. The mornings where you couldn't breathe right. The headaches that lasted weeks because the pressure of being you was too much. The cold floor beneath your knees as you broke and broke and broke again. They couldn't survive what you did for 2 weeks. But they judge from the comfort of the life you never wanted. They think peace is a yoga mat and journaling. You learned peace by walking through fire with no shoes and no map. You didn't just heal, you upgraded. Now your mind's a war room, your heart's a steel vault, your instincts razor sharp. You see them clearly now. The masks, the lies, the fake check-in texts. They pretend to care, but only when it's convenient, only when your glow makes them look dim. You don't owe them softness. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them watered-down versions of your story to make it easier to swallow. You owe yourself everything they tried to strip from you. Your power, your presence, your full volume. And if it makes them uncomfortable, good. Because for once, they're finally feeling a fraction of what they put you through. And it's eating them alive, not because they suddenly grew a conscience, but because you refused to stay broken long enough to make them feel superior. You rose, and it shattered their entire identity, because your collapse was their comfort. Your silence was their security blanket. They felt taller when you were on your knees, but now, you walk in with that quiet storm energy. No need to prove anything. No need to explain your glow. No need to hand out PowerPoint slides of your pain for them to finally believe it was real. You wear your survival like a second skin, and they can't stop staring, because guilt always lingers in the ones who smiled while you bled. They don't bring up the past because they're healed. They avoid it because they're exposed. You hold up a mirror just by existing, not the kind that flatters, the kind that reveals. Every fake laugh, every fake check-in, every time they chose the crowd over your character. You remember how they'd changed the subject when you started opening up. You remember being too much, too intense, too sensitive. You remember how they told you to let it go when they were the ones twisting the knife. And through it all, you kept showing up. You kept loving. You kept hoping they'd change. That maybe, just maybe, they'd wake up and see you. But they didn't. Not until it was too late. Not until the crazy ones started making sense. Not until your breakdowns turned into breakthroughs they couldn't copy. They wanted your silence. They got your legacy instead. You didn't just outgrow them. You outlived the version of yourself that ever needed them. That broken, desperate, approval-hungry version. Gone, dead, buried, and in its place, a force they don't have a name for. Something too real, too raw, too unapologetically aware to be tamed. You see through their pity now. It's not kindness. It's fear wearing a smile. They're terrified you'll speak, that you'll finally tell the truth, that you'll burn their carefully curated lies to the ground with one sentence. Because deep down, they know you have the receipts, the memories, the texts, the ignored calls, the jokes made at your expense, the sudden disappearances when things got heavy, the dismissals, the ghosting, the subtle digs wrapped in concern. You don't need revenge. You are the revenge. Not the petty kind, Not the scream in their face kind, but the kind that thrives in silence. The kind that glows while they spiral. The kind that builds while they binge and scroll and pretend to be okay. You became what they never expected. Someone who didn't need validation to win. You don't flinch anymore when someone doubts you. You've been doubted by experts, by family, by friends, by the ones who swore they'd never leave. And you survived every single exit. Your solitude, that's your sanctuary now. That's where you built your empire. No crowds, no applause, just grit, pain, and raw, ruthless clarity. They see your success and think you're lucky. Nah. You're disciplined, you're unshakable, you're the result of 1,000 sleepless nights and 1,000,000 deaths inside your own head. And still, you rise. You stopped asking why they hurt you. You started asking why you ever let them. And that shift, that's where the fear set in. Because you're not just healing, you're remembering. And memory with power is dangerous. Because you're not forgetting, you're calculating, you're documenting in silence every fake smile, every time they clapped for someone else just to spite you, every time you succeeded quietly and they ignored it loudly. You kept the score, not for revenge, but for reference, so you'd never again confuse familiar with safe. They don't get access to you anymore, not the real you. They get the version that fits inside polite nods and short replies, the curated you, the one they deserve, because the raw, unfiltered, heart on fire you. They don't know what to do with that kind of honesty. They told people you were the problem. You were too intense, too emotional, too unpredictable. Translation, you didn't play their game. You didn't water yourself down to fit their fragile little comfort zones. You didn't wear the fake smile at brunch or laugh at their tired, recycled jokes. You made them uncomfortable, not by being loud, but by being awake. You saw the lies they fed themselves just to sleep at night. You saw the patterns, the projection, the coping mechanisms dressed up as personalities. You saw the marriage they post about, but don't actually believe in. You saw the career they brag about, but secretly hate. You saw their whole fake little empire, and they knew you saw it. Because you weren't distracted. You weren't medicated by groupthink. You weren't sold on the narrative. You stayed alert, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. You knew something was off. Even when they all agreed it was fine. And that knowing, that stubborn refusal to fall asleep with the rest of them, that's what made you dangerous. That's why they had to call you crazy. Because if you weren't crazy, then they were wrong. If you weren't broken, then they were the ones living a lie. And they couldn't face that. Not then, not ever. They chose comfort over truth. You chose scars over delusion. They blended in. You bled out. They numbed up. You felt everything. And for that, you became the outcast, the exile, the problem. But here's the twist they never saw coming. You stopped needing them to get it. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped showing your soul to the emotionally bankrupt. You stopped handing front row tickets to people who cheered for your downfall. And they felt it. You didn't announce it. You didn't post about it. You just disappeared emotionally, spiritually, energetically. You pulled your light back. And suddenly, their little world dimmed. You were the sun they spit on until the cold hit. You were the warmth they mocked until they froze in the shadows. They watch you from afar now, still pretending, still performing, still stuck in the roles they cast themselves in. And you've moved past the stage entirely. They used to say, "You've changed. Damn right you did." You changed everything. Not out of spite, not for applause, but because staying the same would have killed you, not physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. You had to evolve or be erased, and you don't get to both survive and stay palatable. You had to unlearn survival patterns that were choking you in the name of loyalty, had to burn bridges they swore were lifelines, but really were chains, had to sit in rooms with your own silence because nobody else could stomach the real version of you. You remember the nights where your phone didn't light up unless someone needed something. You remember opening your mouth just to be met with eye rolls or blank stares. You remember pouring out your truth into people who only ever gave you plastic sympathy and recycled advice they didn't even believe themselves. You became fluent in fake concern. You learned how to spot pity dressed up as compassion. You heard the way their voice shifted when you succeeded. You noticed how they only showed up when you were low enough to make them feel tall. They didn't support you, they tolerated you, and only when you were smaller than them. But when you started healing, when you started asking hard questions, when you stopped laughing at things that weren't funny anymore, that's when they distanced themselves. That's when the invitations stopped. That's when the group chats went silent and the posts about you got vague. Not because you became someone different, but because you became someone they couldn't manipulate anymore. You weren't fun to mock anymore. You weren't easy to gaslight anymore. You weren't accessible to their projections anymore. You became a mirror too clean for their delusions. And that kind of reflection, it stings, especially for people who've spent their whole lives pretending they're the hero. They needed you to stay broken, because your healing ruins their narrative. Because if the crazy one is rising, what does that make them? You're the walking contradiction they can't digest, the proof that you can be shattered into pieces and still come back sharper. They wanted your breakdown to be permanent. They needed your trauma to be a punchline. They bet everything on you not making it, and every step you take forward feels like betrayal to them. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that couldn't see straight. They miss the days where they were the expert on your emotions, where they could call you too much, and you'd shrink without questioning it, where they could guilt you into silence just by raising an eyebrow or dropping a sigh. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. That version died quietly, without a funeral, while they were busy laughing, and you didn't even invite them to the rebirth. You came back different, not louder, not meaner, just clearer. And nothing terrifies liars more than someone with clarity. You changed everything, not out of spite, not for applause, but because staying the same would have killed you, not physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. You had to evolve or be erased, and you don't get to both survive and stay palatable. You had to unlearn survival patterns that were choking you in the name of loyalty, had to burn bridges they swore were lifelines, but really were chains, had to sit in rooms with your own silence because nobody else could stomach the real version of you. You remember the nights where your phone didn't light up unless someone needed something. You remember opening your mouth just to be met with eye rolls or blank stares. You remember pouring out your truth into people who only ever gave you plastic sympathy and recycled advice they didn't even believe themselves. You became fluent in fake concern. You learned how to spot pity dressed up as compassion. You heard the way their voice shifted when you succeeded. You noticed how they only showed up when you were low enough to make them feel tall. They didn't support you, they tolerated you, and only when you were smaller than them. But when you started healing, when you started asking hard questions, when you stopped laughing at things that weren't funny anymore, That's when they distanced themselves. That's when the invitations stopped. That's when the group chats went silent and the posts about you got vague. Not because you became someone different, but because you became someone they couldn't manipulate anymore. You weren't fun to mock anymore. You weren't easy to gaslight anymore. You weren't accessible to their projections anymore. You became a mirror too clean for their delusions. And that kind of reflection, it stings. Especially for people who've spent their whole lives pretending they're the hero. They needed you to stay broken. Because your healing ruins their narrative. Because if the crazy one is rising, what does that make them? You're the walking contradiction they can't digest. The proof that you can be shattered into pieces and still come back sharper.